Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Kosis, and I'm the Director of Financial Aid here at our university. Today, we are going to go over the filing the FAFSA process and getting ready for to receive your financial aid package for the 23-24 academic year. I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll get started. Okay. As I said, we are going to go over the financial aid process for the 23-24 academic year. Things we're going to talk about today, what is financial aid, the FAFSA process, and then the types of aid you might see in your financial aid offer. So let's start with what is financial aid and why is it important to complete the FAFSA process? Well, financial aid is assistance that does not come from a family or personal savings or funding. So anything that comes from really sources that are not from the family or from the student. There's two main groupings of financial aid. There's merit-based and then there's need-based aid. So merit-based aid is those scholarships and grants that students will receive pretty much based upon their admissions application. So it's going to be based upon what they have done in either high school, maybe on their SATs or ACTs, or if they're transferring in from another college, what they have done at their previous institution. So those are things just based solely on what they have done in high school or at a previous college, and they have nothing to do with what the FAFSA or any need-based aid will be determined by. And the other section of that is then need-based aid. So this aid is based off of filing the FAFSA form, which we'll get to in a little bit, and it's broken down into two different groups. You have your gift aid, so those grants and scholarships, free money, things that you don't have to pay back, and then self-help aid. So this would be like loans, government loans, employment, maybe like work study, or maybe some other type of job on campus. So either you have to pay those loans back, or the student has to work while they are in school in order to earn that money to either, have as a paycheck or put towards their balance. So that's why it's called self-help, because they have to pay it back after, or they're, working to earn that money. But those are the two main categories: your merit-based aid and your need-based aid. Now, in order to apply for financial aid, again, this is not for your merit-based scholarships. Your merit-based scholarships are going to be based upon your admissions application and what you've done in high school or at a previous college. But for anything else above and beyond that, you do need to complete a couple of steps. So in order to apply for the FAFSA form, the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA, you'll hear the acronym a lot. It is the driving factor in determining eligibility for aid other than your merit scholarships. So you will not be awarded or offered a financial aid package until this FAFSA has been completed. So for the 23-24 year, so if you are currently a senior in high school right now, you will be completing the 23-24 FAFSA. It opened up on October 1st, so not that long ago. So it is open at the moment. You can go ahead and do it. And when you're completing this form, you will be using the 2021 tax year information. We do recommend that students complete the FAFSA as soon as possible during their senior year. Ideally, I always like to recommend by Thanksgiving to have that in. But really, if you have it in by the first of the year, that'd be great. And that will give colleges and universities plenty of time to put together financial aid offers to you, to get them out to you so that you can review those and see, what would be a best fit for you financially. In order to get ready to file the FAFSA, there's a couple things you need to do. Step one is that you do need to create an account, an FSA ID. So whether you're a student or a parent, you will need to create your own account. So it is the student's FAFSA. The FAFSA will be in the student's name. But if they're going to be considered a dependent student, which 9 times out of 10 in high school, most students will be considered dependent, and this means they have to provide parental information on the FAFSA. At least one parent will also have to create an FSA ID of their own. The FSA ID is really your electronic signature for anything federal going forward for the college process. So the student's going to create their own, at least one parent is going to create their own FSA ID. You will need to use separate email addresses when creating this FSA ID. You cannot use the same email address for both the student and the parent account creation. It will mess things up. So please be sure you are using 2 separate email addresses. When you do create your FSA ID, you can use this to complete the FAFSA form. Again, it's your electronic signature to sign off on that. When you get further into the financial aid process, you're going to use it, the student will, to sign off on master promissory notes, do loan counseling, and then even after graduation as well. In order to create your FSA ID account, you will need your social security number, again, one for the students and then at least one parent, and then the either cell phone number and or email address. And again, they must be separate numbers and separate email addresses when creating the FSA IDs. So you can go ahead and do that today. You can create your FSA ID today, have it all ready. Sometimes it does take a few minutes or sorry, a few days to confirm identities through the government process. So, kind of get that ready ahead of time so you're all set with that. And then once you have those created, then you can go ahead and file the FAFSA form itself. So after you've created your FSA ID account, the next step would be to actually gather all the documents that you will need to complete the FAFSA form. So it is for the 23-24 academic year, it is going to be based off of the 2021 tax year. So if the student filed taxes in 2021, and if the parents filed taxes in 2021, those items will need to be gathered. Also, if you have your W-2 forms from that 2021 year, those will come in handy as well. You will also need any records of any untaxed income, such as child support received or interest income maybe earned from savings or checking accounts. Again, you also need to have information on how much is in your checking and cash savings and checking accounts, investments like stocks, bonds, real estate, not the home you live in, and if you have any business or farm assets, those you will need to have net worth of those. So there is some preparation you're going to need to get together and get it ready in order to file the FAFSA. But it's a good idea to get these prepared ahead of time so that when you sit down to do the FAFSA, it won't take quite as long. You will also need, again, the social security number of the student, the social security number of the parent. Both parents you will need for this if there's more than one in the household, and then also the student's driver license number if they have one. They ask for this on the FAFSA as well. So these are the main things you will need to have gathered in order to go ahead and complete the FAFSA. Once you do have all that information, you can go to studentaid.gov. That is where you will file your FAFSA. That's the same place you're also going to create your FSA ID. But and really, studentaid.gov is the main hub for all things federal. From here until until they change things up again, studentaid.gov is where you are going to go to file your FAFSA every single year. So you go onto the website, you go under apply for aid. If you go and then under the FAFSA process, if you've never been there before, go to start here. If you've been there before, maybe you've done something else or started a FAFSA at some point, go to log in and it will take you to that login page. Please make sure you are selecting the correct year. Currently, there are 2 years open for the FAFSA form. There's the year we're in right now, 22-23, and then there's the 23-24 year. If you are a current senior in high school, you will be completing the 23-24 FAFSA form. Please make sure you're doing the right one. We've already seen some students do last year's FAFSA, and so they have to do it again because we can't package or put together a financial aid offer based upon the wrong year. So be very careful when you're going here because as there are currently 2 years open on the FAFSA site. So studentaid.gov is where you will go to complete the FAFSA. I recommend giving it about an hour or so the first time around, just so that you're reading all the questions. There's a lot of skip logic involved. You might not have to answer every single question, but it's important to make sure you're answering them correctly as you go throughout the process. One of the nice things about the FAFSA form is that they do allow for the IRS data retrieval. And what this is that it takes information directly on file with the IRS from your 2021 tax information, and it uploads it into the FAFSA. This is an option you can choose. It was available starting when the FAFSA opened October 1st of this past year, or current year, I should say. And we highly recommend you use the data retrieval tool when completing the FAFSA. This really allows for schools to have accurate information, so they're not, putting together financial aid offers that might change down the road because maybe the information was input incorrectly. So again, highly recommend that you use the data retrieval tool, whether student or parent, when you are completing the FAFSA. Again, it takes the information directly from the IRS and puts it into the FAFSA form. You are actually able to see the information that's being uploaded for security purposes. You'll see it'll be grayed out. They'll say that it did it. Just know that it is uploading the right information, and the financial aid officers that you're sending the information to will be able to see that and then work with that to put together your financial aid offer. And then quickly, I just wanted to go over some of the types of financial aid. We talked about this a little bit earlier at the beginning, but there are 4 main types of financial aid you will start to see in your financial aid offers. So there's scholarships, grants. Scholarships are more so along the lines of like merit-based scholarships that typically don't have anything to do with having financial need as determined by the FAFSA form. You then have your grants. So these are more along the lines of stuff that comes through the FAFSA, whether it's federal money or state money, or maybe some institutional grants based off of having financial need, based off of your results from the FAFSA. So scholarships and grants, those are things you don't have to pay back. They are free money. Those are things you always want to accept. Then it goes into what we call self-help aid earlier in the presentation. Loans are going to be part of your financial aid offer. These technically the FAFSA application is your application for saying that you are interested in having financial aid, which includes the loan. So these federal loans, direct, either subsidized or unsubsidized loans that will be offered to you in your financial aid package. You don't have to accept these, but they will be offered to you. You can reject them, that's not a problem. But because you filed the FAFSA, that was kind of like raising your hand saying that you are interested in all types of financial aid, and loans are considered financial aid. So those will be offered in the financial aid offer letter that students can either decide to accept or reject. And then the other one would be employment. So you might see maybe a work study job offer in that offer letter, or maybe it's some other type of student employment that the school offers. So again, this is employment. So the student will be working either on campus or maybe somewhat close off campus to earn money to either put towards their bill or have as a paycheck for living and personal expenses. Resources to go to get some additional information. Studentaid.gov, as I said earlier, this is all things federal. From the time you start attending college all the way until after you are done and graduated and are maybe starting to pay back your loans or something like that. Studentaid.gov is the source for all things federal. It has a wealth of information on there about all different types of grants and scholarships and different programs, whether it's a loan program or maybe a teach grant. There's a lot of different information that can be found on there. And then HESC.ny.gov is your resource for New York State scholarships. If you are planning on attending a New York State school for college, I highly recommend applying for some state scholarships. HESC.ny.gov is where you will go to apply for these directly. The most common one is probably the TAP program, the Tuition Assistance Program through New York State. You do have to have an family income cutoff of $80,000 or less for New York State net taxable income. But there are other scholarships on there as well. There's the Excelsior Scholarship if you're planning on attending a state school and your family income is $125,000 or less. There's some other merit-based scholarships on there. So it's a good resource to go to apply for your state aid. So studentaid.gov for your federal, HESC.ny.gov for your New York State scholarships. Those are the two main ones. And then, of course, there's always other questions that come up. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the schools you're applying to, or feel free to contact our financial aid office at Niagara University. Our contact information is listed on the screen here. We can definitely help you out with any, if you have general questions about the FAFSA or financial aid programs. If you have more specific questions about programs that you're looking at specific schools, I recommend contacting those individual universities and colleges. But again, if you have any general questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We are more than happy to help you, throughout this process, whether you're attending Niagara or not. But yes, please be sure to complete your FAFSA form as soon as possible. It really allows us to be able to determine what type of financial aid you will be offered. Even if you're thinking that maybe a school price range, might be out of what you're able to afford, don't rate it off just based off of what their published tuition rate is. That tuition rate is and fees is before any other financial aid is applied for. So after your merit scholarships, maybe after some Pell Grant, some TAP grant, some other need-based grants or loans, it might, really bring down what that cost of that university or college is. So don't rule it out. Always fill out your FAFSA form, at least for the first year, to see what might be available. It is an annual process. You do have to file this every single year in order to be considered for that same aid every single year. But once you do it the first time around, it's a lot easier going forward. It's just a renewal process. So be sure to do that as soon as you can during your senior year. And again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions going forward. Have a good day.